and I have been a part of Tala Shruti for 17 years now. I started at the age of 5, and I'm now 22 and a graduate student at Rutgers University pursuing a career in education. So over the past 17 years, I have been blessed to be under the tutelage of Guru Srinivasan, who has been a huge support in my life throughout my dance journey. So I have always loved dancing. My first performance ever before I started Bharatanatyam was when I was just 3.5 years old. And from that performance, my parents knew that I just always wanted to be dancing and I just always wanted to be on a stage. But of course, Bharatanatyam comes with a lot of discipline and a lot of requirements when it comes to dedicating your time and energy into this ancient traditional art form. So a huge part of my journey across these past 17 years has been learning how to discipline myself and learning how to dedicate myself to a traditional art form. And that was certainly a journey that took a while, of course. And so the clip that you just saw from my Arangetram that happened in August 2016, so 4 years ago, you can see that is kind of the start of my journey as what I would call a more professional dancer. And so in these little segments, I will go into a little more detail about what the Arangetram journey was like and what led up to it, because of course no one is just born into being able to perform for an Arangetram. There's a lot that goes into studying and practicing in the many years leading up to it. So growing up, I always knew that I wanted to one day do an Arangetram, because from a very early age, I think starting at the age of 5 or 6, once I started Bharatanatyam, my mom would always make it a point to bring me to so many Arangetrams, both from our own dance school as well as other dance schools. And so by looking at these girls who were older than me completing their Arangetrams and talking about their journeys, that was a huge point of inspiration for myself as well as for many of my peers who were also in my dance class. So because of that, I really conditioned myself from an early age to say, okay, I have this goal. I don't know when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen, because the Arangetram is a very intimidating thing, I think, when we, at a young age, we're struggling with our basic arugos because they can be very exhausting, and we're struggling to get into a routine of practicing all the time. And when we're seeing these girls who are in their late teens completing this 3-hour dance recital and completing a varnam that is at least 30 minutes long, it can be very intimidating as a very young dancer, because you think, how could I possibly achieve that someday? But of course, like I mentioned before, it's not something that happens overnight. And so when I began my Arangetram journey, specifically the year that I began my Arangetram training was certainly a journey in itself. And through that year, it's really a time where Bharatanatyam and this art form, it has to become your first priority. And that's not just physical priority, it's also mental priority. And I think that I really would like to stress that to, I think, a lot of people who are aiming to do an Arangetram, because people worry so much about how can I physically get through this, and they neglect to remember that it's mind and body together. And Bharatanatyam specifically, it's honestly 95% mind and 5% body. So if you don't set your mind to dedicate itself to this art form, then it's very, very difficult to get your stamina up and to complete this Arangetram physically. So that's something that I think would be the number one lesson I learned during that 1 year leading up to my Arangetram, was the fact that I needed to make sure my mind and body aligned with one another, and that everyone was on the same page, and that I had to come to terms with myself, that I had to work hard and not get distracted mentally by all this other stress and all of the more superficial things and the decorations and things like that go into an Arangetram, and only focus on the dancing. So while many people think of an Arangetram as kind of this culminating graduation, I would urge everyone to remember that Arangetram means ascending the stage. So it's actually a beginning and not an end. And so I had the privilege, of course, by going to university very close to where I live, I was able to still be very in touch with the dance studio after I completed my Arangetram. So basically just 2 months after I finished my Arangetram in August 2016, I came back, as well as my Arangetram partner Megha. We both came back to become assistant teachers at Tala, Shruti. And I always like to tell people about my post-Arangetram journey, because I think that's something people don't talk about enough, because I feel like, again, the Arangetram is often mistaken to be the end point, and so many people think, okay, I've done my Arangetram, I've finished, I'm closing that chapter of my life. But what I have learned over the past 4 years is that that journey after the Arangetram is honestly where most growth happens. So now when I, for example, rewatch parts of my Arangetram video to edit clips for this video, I'm looking and I see it's so apparent how much my dancing has changed, how much my confidence has changed since that Arangetram, because I have kept dancing and because I have kept performing. And I still remember how nervous I was about the idea of doing an Arangetram and getting up on that stage, and how there's so much tension and pressure. But once you get over that, once you prove to yourself that you can complete something as grand as an Arangetram and something as important as that, and complete that journey, it gives you a sense of satisfaction as a dancer, and it makes you take ownership of your journey, and it makes you feel like, oh, now I managed to do that, so now the sky's the limit, essentially. So again, I think that it's very important for people to recognize that there's so much that happens after an Arangetram. That's not the ending point. There's so much more complex choreography, there's so much more you can do after you've gotten through that initial step of completing an Arangetram. And there's a lot more out there. So for people who are perceiving the Arangetram to be the end of their dance journey, just know that it doesn't have to be, and it really shouldn't be.